Hey everybody, this is Darren Van Dam and you're watching Flick Connection, the show that helps you get more out of movies, and today I want to tell you about all the best stuff Netflix is adding in April 2021. If you're new to this channel, welcome, but what I will be doing is explaining all the things of interest that Netflix is adding during the month of April. Typically, the first is where they dump all the familiar favorites. There's not too many this month, so we're gonna breeze through the first really quickly, and then we'll spend time going through the rest of the month in chronological order, talking about all the new interesting stuff that they're gonna be adding, and there's quite a bit of new stuff coming, including some Netflix originals, as well as some interesting movies that have been released within the last year. Like I said, we're gonna go ahead and start off with April 1st, where they do add the familiar favorites, one of which is Yes Man, starring Jim Carrey. Kind of a typical Jim Carrey thing, but he's moved on to do other things with his career, so this is sort of one of the last true blue comedies that the guy has ever done. For horror fans, they're adding a couple of classics. One of them is Insidious. This went on to spawn the Conjuring series, but I do like the original Insidious. I think there's a lot of interesting elements to it. It's fairly simple overall, but it's got some good scares in it, and I also like some of the weirdness involved in it, because it just is different than a lot of the stuff that studios put out, at least in terms of big budget horror movies. So a long time favorite of mine, and it has been quite a while since I've watched it, so I might actually check it out this month. And then they're also adding Leprechaun from 1993. Horror fans know this one is a classic, but if you were ever a fan of this movie, April is going to be a great month to rewatch it on Netflix. They had The Pianist, which is a multi-Academy Award winning movie starring Adrien Brody about a pianist who was hiding out during the Holocaust. This one is a very difficult watch. It's very long, but it's very, very well done. And Adrien Brody did win an Academy Award for this. I mean, that doesn't always mean it's someone's best performance, but in this case, it might actually be Adrien Brody's best work. They do not often add classics to Netflix, but they're adding My Fair Lady this month, which could be a good watch for some of you. But if you're wanting to watch a newer sort of romantic comedy thing, I actually think Friends with Benefits is a pretty decent one. I'm not really a fan of the genre, but this one actually stands out. Not in a big way, but it just felt a little bit less sort of washed over, like you're rehashing the same thing. There's a lot of that in there, but there's a little bit of freshness mixed in as well. So if you're in the mood for a rom-com, this is a good one to go with. If you're not, there's no reason to watch Friends with Benefits. The Time Traveler's Wife is another sort of romantic movie, whereas it's not really a comedy, it's a little bit more of a serious drama. It's interesting and could make for a great date night watch during the month of April. White Boy is a documentary about White Boy Rick, who was a very, very young and very, very infamous drug dealer in Detroit in the 80s. There's also a movie called White Boy Rick that actually stars Matthew McConaughey, based on the same character, but this is a documentary that came out around the same time as that movie. And then the last thing of interest on the first is a documentary series called Worn Stories, which is a mini-series about clothes, but more interestingly, it's about people's stories of their favorite, most sort of personal articles of clothing. Should be at least an interesting human interest documentary series. But let's go ahead and move on with the rest of April, because there are some very interesting projects getting added to Netflix this month.
Yo! There's a horse in your house.
Oh, that's you right here.
On the 2nd, they add a new Netflix original movie starring Idris Elba called Concrete Cowboy. This is really going to be a coming-of-age thing about a young boy, actually played by one of the kids from Stranger Things, but he is relocated to Philadelphia to live with his father, who has a horse that lives in their house and just has a completely different lifestyle. Should be a good sort of coming-of-age watch, especially for fans of Idris Elba. Sky High is a Spanish heist movie starring Luis Tosar, who's one of my more favorite Spanish actors. I like almost everything the guy is in, and I've liked a lot of the Spanish thrillers that Netflix has been adding over the years, so I'll definitely be checking this one out. I can't say for sure before they add it, but Netflix has been adding very good dubbed versions, particularly of their Spanish movies, so I'm gonna keep my eye on this one. And then The Serpent is a series that they co-produced with the BBC that is likely to be one of the more outstanding picks for the month of April. It takes place in the 70s and is about this massive manhunt for a killer who ended up being the world's most wanted man at one point in time. And from what I've seen so far, it does look like it's going to be a pretty solid series. On April 3rd, they add Escape from Planet Earth, which should be a good, fun animated watch with the kids, but it's not one of those types of animated movies that I would say adults will enjoy by themselves. But there's possibly one of those later on this list. April 7th brings This Is a Robbery, the world's biggest art heist. This is a mini-series about a heist at the Boston Museum where a couple of guys came in dressed as cops and stole millions upon millions upon millions of dollars worth of famous paintings. And Netflix, I say it every month, they've done a killer job with the true crime miniseries. I've loved almost every single one they've done, and having studied art history in college, I'm particularly interested in this one. April 9th brings Night in Paradise, which is a recently released Korean gangster movie. I have been loving Korean gangster movies, so much so that I'm watching a bunch of them, and I might be doing a video on the top 10 of all time sometime in the near future. Have not seen this one yet, but from what I've seen, it looks interesting. And this is from the director of I Saw the Devil, one of my favorite sort of serial killer movies from any country, but certainly one of my favorite South Korean movies. So I'm very interested to see what he did with this one. And then a comedy movie that Netflix seems to be the most proud of this month is Thunder Force, which stars Melissa McCarthy and Octavia Spencer, and is actually directed by Melissa McCarthy's husband, who has done a handful of her, let's say, least successful movies. It does look well produced, it does look like it's got some funny moments in it. I'm sure plenty of people are gonna enjoy it. I'm a fan of both of these ladies as actors, and I honestly, even though this movie does look like it has funny moments in it, I'd much prefer to see both of them in good health than to see Thunder Force. On April 10th, they add The Stand-In, which is a Drew Barrymore movie where she plays two characters that came out in 2020 that I've certainly never heard of. So odds are this is not going to be a great pick unless you're just like a big fan of Drew Barrymore. They had quite a bit on April 14th, including Dad, Stop Embarrassing Me, a new family sitcom starring Jamie Foxx. Looks funny enough. I'm not at a point in my life where I'm really watching family sitcoms, but I do know Netflix has added quite a few, and it's interesting that a big star like Jamie Foxx is doing one. The Soul is a Chinese sci-fi drama that looks like it's got a lot of mystery, and with hundreds of reviews, it's currently got a 7.0 rating out of 10 on Metacritic, which is pretty high for a movie like this, so keep your eyes peeled on the 14th for The Soul. And then Why Did You Kill Me is a Netflix original documentary about a mother who used MySpace, if you remember MySpace, to investigate and track down the people that murdered her daughter. Sounds like some pretty heavy stuff, but again, Netflix has been killing it with the true crime stuff, and this one sounds like an interesting setup. If you've only recently developed an interest and appreciation for Joaquin Phoenix after his role in Joker, then you may have missed The Master, which is directed by Paul Thomas Anderson, director of great movies like Boogie Nights and There Will Be Blood. This one is loosely based on the creation of Scientology. Now, all the names are changed, but Philip Seymour Hoffman is essentially playing L. Ron Hubbard, and Joaquin Phoenix gives one of his greatest performances to predate Joker. It's fantastic. It's really, really intense at times and weird. It's got all sorts of weirdness with it, and it's the type of movie that I loved when it came out. I know a lot of people that liked it, but I mention it here because I feel like there's a new audience for it. If you loved his performance in Joker, I think you're gonna really enjoy what he did with this movie, even if you maybe wouldn't have prior to Joker having been released. On the 16th, they add Rush, a fantastic movie directed by Ron Howard. It stars Chris Hemsworth and is about Formula One racers. It is a very, very good movie. It's one of Ron Howard's best in the last 10 years or so. It really does stand out. It didn't do great at the box office. It's an excellent example of one of those, what we'll call a sports movie that is not for people who are necessarily into sports, meaning you don't need to know anything about racing, Formula One, anything to really enjoy this movie. It's very, very well done. It's intense and really exciting. Synchronic is a recently released sci-fi movie directed by Moorhead and Benson, who also did The Endless, which is currently available on Netflix, as well as a few other movies that I really love. In fact, I did a full review of that movie in recent memory. In fact, I did a full review of that movie just a couple of months ago and did an interview with the director, so I'm a fan of it. If you like cool, slick sci-fi stuff that makes you think a little bit, this is a lower budget movie. While this is the biggest budget movie these guys have done, it is a lower budget movie, but very, very well executed. If you're like me and you love Jessica Chastain, you're gonna have plenty to watch in the month of April. They're adding 3 big movies of hers, including Crimson Peak, directed by Guillermo del Toro, one of my favorite directors. While this is far from my favorite movie of his, it is really creepy and it has a very, very good look to it. All the actors are good in it. It just didn't quite pack the punch that most Guillermo del Toro movies do. Also on the 16th though, they're adding The Zookeeper's Wife, which is a World War II drama about the Warsaw Zoo, which hid hundreds of people during the Nazi invasion of Poland. And then on the 19th, they're adding Miss Sloane, which is sort of a courtroom drama where she plays a lobbyist. All good stuff from her. She's always fantastic. Now, if you're in another country, or maybe you've watched this video in the future and not all of these videos are available, you can still access them using the right kind of VPN service, and today's sponsor, CyberGhost VPN, is that type of VPN service. Not only do they make your web browsing secure, safe, and private, but they have specialized servers targeted at all the major streaming services in a variety of countries that will allow you, just with the click of a button, to disguise your computer as being in the UK, Australia, Germany, immediately allowing you to access Netflix's library there, which is vastly different from what it may be in your country. Right now, my viewers can pay as low as $2.19 a month when they use the link in the description below, and that will unlock vast new libraries of movies, and it's less than half the cost of a movie rental. CyberGhost is not only super easy to use, but they have a 45-day money-back guarantee that gives you a month and a half to decide whether or not you like it and want to keep it, and you can get a full refund. They have fantastic 24/7 customer support, so they're there to help you get it set up on multiple devices. Speaking of devices, you can use CyberGhost VPN on up to 7 devices at the same time, and it's all the different types of devices you're already used to using. It's a fantastic deal, around $2 to just access way more movies than you're accessing now. Again, go to the link in the description. My viewers are saving big on CyberGhost accounts right now. That's why I keep including them in videos. You guys keep signing up and I keep getting positive feedback from you. I've been using it for over a year and love it. I hope you do as well. But let's go ahead and move on with the rest of April. On the 22nd, they add a new David Attenborough nature documentary called Life in Color, which focuses on how different animals use color to their advantage. I always love his stuff. He just has the perfect voice in the universe for narrating nature shows, and there's no reason this shouldn't be just as good as anything else he's ever done. One of the other movies that Netflix is really proud of this month, and they should be because of the cast, is Stowaway. This stars Anna Kendrick and Toni Collette as astronauts who discover a stowaway. Looks like interesting stuff, and again, from what Netflix is putting forward, this seems to be one they're particularly proud of, because keep in mind, they've seen it already. They know whether it's good or not. And then speaking of big releases Netflix is proud of, Shadow and Bone is a new series that is one of the biggest budget sci-fi series they've ever put together. It is based on a book by the same name, and it is a book in a series. They're called the Grisha series. It's not a series that I am familiar with, but from what I've seen so far, it does look interesting, even if it's targeted at an audience that is slightly younger than me. By the way, all of these dates are subject to change. Netflix tends to change 1 or 2 at the last minute, but Heard and Seen either gets added on the 29th or the 30th. I found some conflicting reports on that, but this is a horror movie starring Amanda Seyfried. She's a big enough star. This does look like, again, it's going to be targeted at a slightly younger audience. I'm not sure this is going to be one that major horror fans love, but I think anyone that's younger that's sort of just getting into the horror genre will at least find this one interesting. That's at least my early take on what I've seen so far. And then finally on the 30th, they're adding The Mitchells versus the Machines, which is a big animated movie. The same folks behind Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse are behind this one. It's got kind of a cloudy with a chance of meatballs look to it, which I love. It's bright, colorful. This looks like one that will be great to watch with the family. And if you don't have a family and you like these big animated movies, this does look like one that will be good to watch by yourself. Again, another one of the ones that Netflix appears to be the most proud of for the month, which is always a good sign. It doesn't always prove to result in a good movie, but more often than not, it is the better projects that they have coming out that month. So that's the month. Normally I would give you the full list of everything leaving, but I'm releasing this video a little bit later than I normally would. One reason is no one ever really seems to care about all the stuff that's leaving. If I'm wrong, you can let me know in the comments below, but also, waiting a little bit closer to the first allowed me to get some more accurate information as that information is released leading up to the first. So trying out something a little bit new here. Let me know in the comments below what you're looking forward to watching. Let me know if you want me to bring everything that's leaving back to these videos, but also help me thank the Patreon supporters. If you're interested in becoming a Patreon supporter, there's a link in the description below. There's also a link where you can become a channel member and get access to exclusive videos. But I will keep making these videos as long as you keep watching them. Thanks for watching this Netflix list, and you will see me on the next one.